think there's just a couple things to say off the bat, which is um, we don't have enough assets in the treasury to cover the losses, obviously, and even if we did drain in the treasury, it wouldn't really be an effective solution. So I think repaying from revenue that the protocol earns is really going to be our only option. And so it becomes a matter of how is that actually distributed? What is the form of the mechanism that allows the revenue to be repaid to people? And, like what asset do we repay with? I don't think redeploying the indices, for example, would work because there were a bunch of LPs who also held ETH. But then we also have to consider, based on the asset, what are we kind of exposing people to with the market that they would then be involved in. So with that, I guess maybe we just ask if anyone would like to suggest anything, and you can raise your hand.
David Hanks, I'm seeing your name coming up on and off. Do you want to say anything? Just reconfirm by sticking your hand up if so. Okay. No. All right. We've had so quite early on in the aftermath, we spoke to the chaps at Rory Capital. They've suggested their own mechanism or a variant thereof. Haven't really dug into it. An alternative that is perhaps worth looking at that we will consider, to put forward, I think, is a variant of the Cornichon that Banteg put together for Pickle Finance. Beyond that, as Dylan has said, our main, in the absence of returned funds, which given LP damage for auxiliary things such as ETH, DeFi 5, etc., even full return at this point would constitute probably 50 to 60% of the damage that was done. That would have been a great start, but obviously things are in his hands for that. There is, I suspect, then a discussion to be had about. So, okay, the plans that we have in terms of releasing Nern and using those vaults as interest-bearing options for various ERC20s, that has not stopped. Satora continues to prep work to begin full verification of those vaults, and thereafter we will submit this to Code Arena, who have been very supportive throughout, to get a community look at these. The reason that this is important is because it becomes an avenue of revenue for the DAO that did not previously exist, and is, has kind of always been part of the roadmap. We will also, as things go on, continue building out the roadmap towards interest-bearing indices using Balance of E2 and Nern integrations through asset managers. I will, of course, I don't think any jury in the world will convict people who want to use the protocol of quite a lot of reticence in that, but it is something that we will be building towards. So, in terms of the capability to generate revenue, it is there, and it will be being built out as would have happened even before this incident occurred. I think parameters of that need to be determined by the DAO now come down to things like a potential split between the DAO, a recovery fund, and DNDX stakers, if the latter is to take place at all. For those of you that have already staked NDX into DNDX time locks, it is possible, should we wish to now, terminate the time locks on these and remove fees. So I think that was something that needs to be addressed. It could also be the case that it is determined that instead of the 60% of revenue that would go to DNDX stakers as originally planned, would be reduced and some would go down to go towards some kind of compensation fund. This is unknown, right? And the amount of revenue that the protocol had generated right now is, in the current iteration of the protocol, really not meaningful in terms of the bucket here. Now, I'm not suggesting that all of the revenue that's generated goes towards a fund here, because the DAO does need to support itself if it has any intention of sustaining itself in order to fully see this plan through. But with that said, anything that is put into place is going to be arduous. I don't think any of us need to believe anything else. I'm just going to quickly check the chat channels here. No, it's all just GMs. Good times. Is there anyone that would like to say anything at this point? Because remember, it's Core will be thinking of things here, but it is not right to determine for you, for the DAO, how this should look. If people are more comfortable perhaps putting their thoughts into text, it is perhaps more appropriate then for you to make a post in the mega thread that I've created in the forums, which I put up a few days ago. But yeah, this is now a team effort, guys. At least in terms of ideas, it's the responsibility of people that can put code together and implement these things to do it. But we don't have the right to tell you what it should look like.
It's like there are two people requesting to.
Okay. I'm going to put up Eric here. You've been invited.
Just curious if there's been any consideration given to maybe separating out different categories of, for lack of a better word, claims. Like maybe there's an audience that would rather just be done and get what they can get short term and be done. And maybe there's much more patient people that would say, I'd rather be made whole, even if it takes a couple of years. We can crunch them into A's and B's and C's or something like that, like the vesting with the DNDX or something. I don't know how that would work or what it would look like, but is that something that has been discussed or open to discussion?
So, as far as like separating people out and actually like putting them into different batches based on when they want to get repaid, we hadn't considered that. Lawrence mentioned the Cornicon idea Banteg suggested to us. That's similar to the Rari model. So essentially you have a token that represents a claim on compensation, and the idea is it'll be paid out over several years. But the way that one is structured is that it's essentially a vault. So as assets are deposited into the vault, people can burn their tokens to redeem a claim on whatever revenue has been generated so far. And at least in the beginning, when that's low, they would also have the option of trading that on some kind of speculation market. If other people see that they believe that it is going to be repaid over time and they're willing to wait, then they can kind of buy people's claims out. The benefit of doing that over something where it's just a claim on money in the future and you can't burn it in the intervening time would be that as people do burn it to redeem a partial claim, that would also reduce the total amount that needs to be repaid over the whole period. So that I think would give options to everybody. It would allow people to do partial repayment over time. It would allow people to trade on a speculation market, and it would potentially benefit the DAO in the sense of reducing the overall burden.
Okay, thanks. That definitely helps answer. And obviously, I'm also interested in this being as least arduous for you guys as possible. What can you build the least of and solve the most problems at the same time so we can get back on track?
Yeah, well, for us, luckily, the Cornicon thing already exists, and unless I'm misunderstanding any of the particular details, it's basically just a um, a basic ERC20 vault contract. So, if we decide that that's the route we want to go, um, deploying it will be easy, and that would be the case for anything that's not super complicated. I think the main technical challenge is going to be building the database, just the set of who's owed what, because it touches, multiple chains. It touches different LPs, the tokens themselves, and so that's another aspect that we need to consider.
All right, I'm gonna drop you down from the stage now, move you to audience. Any other? Okay, hang on. Next one up. CCWYZ, you've been invited. Here we go. Hello.
Yeah, guys. I had a question about the existing RARI payouts, the other incidents that have had this. You guys have mentioned a few different plans. Is there a place where we can read up on those? Because I'd love to provide feedback, but I kind of find it hard in a vacuum. So if you guys could post in the forum some materials that we could reference, I think that would be really helpful.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
definitely.
can reach out to the RARI guys to see if they've got previous forum posts that kind of explain how the thinking was of that and what final form it took. Similarly, I can ask Banteg what there is written up, because this stuff will exist already because it already exists in production for the Cornicon. Yeah, okay, I'll do that. I'll put that in the forum posts, and I will make everyone aware of that stuff as it goes out. But it'll take me a little bit of time to just reach out to everyone and gather stuff.
Okay, thanks.
No problem. Thank you for pointing that out. Yeah, aware that I think due to perhaps some of the technical implementations of any solutions that are being put into place, that there might be a need for us to kind of TLDR this for a fair few people, and that's fair. Anything? Hang on a second. Perhaps a committee formed for collecting and researching potential paths to help you guys. I think this is a good idea. I also think that it would be quite slow.
Yeah, I think that would eat up a lot of time that the community doesn't need to be spending. I think the basic form of the compensation is not incredibly complicated. It's mostly just about picking a particular solution. But I mean, these things already exist, and so unless we have some specific technical needs, I I don't think it's worth the time.
Yeah. Abby Pups pointed 3 things out. First off, GM. Secondly, can we get some kind of comparison between the RARI and Banteg repayment plans? That's what we've just been talking about. Love the idea of claim tokens with partial repayments. As far as acquiring funds for reimbursement, I'm not sure that DNDX staker earning at 60% should be touched. Stability and reliability is important right now. There's part of me that agrees with this, but at the same time, I think at the post that I released on Medium, said that this stuff can be unwound and parameters changed if circumstance demand. Now, if this is not a demanding circumstance, I don't know what is. Again, this is not something that we have the right to determine. But I think right now, my personal take, and again, I'm literally thinking this as I'm saying it, is in light of what has happened, 60% to the stakers of the governance token when there are a lot of people hurting is perhaps not appropriate. I don't know, everyone.
Yeah, really just kind of trying to field feedback for future snapshots that'll be executed.
Yep.
So we'll just see how people feel about that.
Yep. Anyone else up on the stage? I am keeping an eye out for hands, but
I would like to point one other thing out with regard to the structure of the repayment, which is with regard to the hacker, any criminal or civil action that occurs, we can't predict at this time whether funds will be recovered, when they'll be recovered, or how. So it could be the case that if we assume that funds are recovered, then it could be the case that they're returned to the Treasury because we've already started a compensation plan and the court sees that that's in place and that repaying people on their end would just complicate things and not result in people getting funds back. It could also be the case that they decide not to do that because if our compensation plan is for people who held the tokens and people who had LP shares, then potentially, they decide to, since the funds are recovered from people who held the tokens, to just give it back to them, right? So we just, we can speculate, but we really don't have any idea what that all might look like. And so it's worth considering as part of the compensation plan, what happens if in a year or something, people are getting repaid from a court.
yeah, good point. Oh yes, Marco Crypto stuck his hand up, so I'm going to invite him up to speak. Up you come.
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me?
GM.
Great, guys. Well, first of all, sorry to everybody. I mean, this is obviously a terrible event. Everybody who lost money, and especially the team who are now shouldering a lot of burdens to pay it back. But I was very heartened that the team is sticking with it and creating a compensation plan. So that's great. And it does seem to me, having kind of looked at a lot of the kind of underlying data, that it will be a multi-year plan. So given that, kind of weighing, how revenue streams are going to be distributed, it does, like, there's currently this 60% going to stakers, so that definitely seems like it will need to be adjusted, if not completely unrolled. That was leaving a small amount for the team and for basically funding the operations of the protocol, which what I was understanding was kind of the remainder. Now there's a compensation plan that would have to be talked about, which would need to be a big portion of that revenue as well. And the one that I really had a curiosity about and why I put my hand up is that feasibly someone is going to, if the idea is to kind of keep pursuing these funds that were stolen, that there's some effort and lawyer and expense, et cetera, that go towards that. And I'm wondering if you guys see that as something that's going to have to be funded over the next year, 2 years, however long we pursue that guy, or whether that's just being handled completely separately, or really how is that impacting the finances? So I'll relinquish the mic here.
At the moment, we have contacted law enforcement, and we're kind of looking to see if the criminal justice system is able to handle this adequately. Now, anyone who has lost funds has standing to sue, depending on where they are and what the laws are where they live. So we can't control anyone individually deciding to, or even deciding to group together as some kind of class action suit. We have no control over that. But at the moment, we are not looking to organize anything like that. We've just referred it to law enforcement, looking to see if that handles it. And if it doesn't, then I suspect there will be a need to discuss that. As far as the DAO funding it, I don't know that would be a good use of the DAO's funds, or how practical it would even be to try to have the DAO like transfer assets to a law firm to then represent a bunch of individuals. I don't want to speculate on that, but it sounds very complicated and like something that we probably won't need to consider for quite a while.
Yep. So Buggy has pointed something else similarly about building a war chest for compensation plan while legal procedures are ongoing. Again, I think we've covered this stuff so far. Marco Crypto, I'm just gonna pop you back down into the audience. Thank you. I'm gonna keep reading. Will the $16 million loss affect appreciation of underlying assets in the meantime? How is loss and compensation possibly valued in ETH? What value for ETH? Ghazi has pointed out in a response to that it's safe to say losses will be quantified in dollar equivalent for best risk management practices. I agree with this.
Yeah.
If something's nicked and then appreciates or depreciates in the meantime, that doesn't change the amount of what it was worth when it was nicked. This might be disagreed on. I don't know. I get the dream scenario perhaps here would be funds are returned and then everything appreciates to the point in dollar value where we could cover everything, including the LP damage, but that's fanciful thinking.
Yeah, the other thing is, even if we did try to, compensate people in the form of ETH or the assets that they were holding at the time, there's a bunch of different people who were having different levels of exposure to different assets. Some people had a balancer LP shares with DeFi 5 that was like 30% DeFi 5 and 2/3 ETH. Other people had half and half. Some people just had pure DeFi 5 exposure and CC10 and FFF. And so that would just massively complicate things. I think we would just have to denominate it in dollar values.
Yeah. I do also want to put this out there. It has been referenced in general chat. If you are one of the people that is in this call, I don't think you would be. If you are someone that attempts to buy the knife here, expecting things to return to peg, you will not be factored into anything that I personally propose for compensation. Yeah, I think I've been receiving quite a lot of grief in my messages and elsewhere about how this was a buying opportunity and that we're responsible for their speculative actions. I wholeheartedly disagree with that.
If you see a token down 90% in an hour and you buy it, that's your fault.
That's your L to eat. Yeah. Yeah, Buck pointing out the better market does, the better we'll be able to generate revenue. Of course, of course. Okay. Rebel Alpaca, you pointed out our funds returned as has been established, and think no, they have not. This is a call to deal with moving forward from there with or without returns of funds. Because we were going to need to come up with something like this due to the LP damage, regardless of whether our boy immediately handed everything back. I think one thing that was asked to me in the Rect chat, which again now this is the first time I've actually put any thought into it, is the attacker referenced in Twitter that he was front run in the pools, and that he views, incorrect as this might be, he views a portion of that as his gains. One of the MEV bots, or the owners of one of the MEV bots, has actually returned about $200,000 worth of sushi to the Treasury, and we are very, very appreciative of that. I think we can reach out to operators of various MEV bots to just ask out of goodwill, but the fact is that regardless of how incorrect the attacker is in his claim of arbitrage, the MEV bots that moved thereafter did perform arbitrage.
Yeah, there would be no legal claim against them whatsoever.
Yeah. It's it's unfortunate the way in which the arbitrage was executed, but from a personal standpoint, they did make the market. The market had been severely damaged at that point, but it was a market that they made. That doesn't remove any of the responsibility of the DAO to come up with a plan for that. But in terms of return, we can ask. But again, a lot of these people are anonymous. No one runs an MEV bot and publicly goes, here I am. But I don't think that's. I just think that was worth saying.
Yeah.
What are the instructions for previous LP holders? Should we hold them and wait for compensation plan to take effect? Don't we have any insurance about? No, nothing in. No part of indexed has been insured. That has never been the case.
If you have LP tokens and burning them is worth the gas that it will cost, then you should. If not, then you may as well just hold on to them.
Yeah.
And then, so with that, I'd also like to just address how we're gonna calculate, who is owed what. I think it seems like it's the consensus, but I just want to see if anyone disagrees with the idea that we look at all of the LP pools for DeFi 5, CC10, and FFF, although there may be some disagreement about including the latter. Calculate the dollar value that people held at the time the attack occurred in the assets they're holding, and then take the snapshot at that point, and then going forward, look at the net amount that they sold or burned. So, if after the attack someone burned their LP tokens, look at the net amount that they got rid of and what they were repaid for it, and count that as a debit against what they are owed, and then just calculate that kind of as as a large group, just for everybody that was on Arbitrum, Polygon, and mainnet. So it sounded like that's the consensus, but if anyone disagrees, then we'd like to hear from you.
Right. Next thing. This isn't really something we could speculate on, but how long will it be for law enforcement to do their thing before you say law enforcement is a dead route? Okay. We heard back from some law enforcement very, very quickly, and that they are interested. However, actions from this point onwards are going to be slow. Again, I need everyone to understand that there are now wheels in motion that we could not necessarily stop, but those wheels move slowly. Law enforcement now needs to think, to ponder, to think about the best way to go about doing this in future. I don't think that, again, please disabuse yourself of the notion that this is going to be the FBI GIF, and then we're going to have funds back in the Treasury courts mandated within the next fortnight. We're looking now at a saga of months, if not years. Please just keep that in mind. What's the plan for liquidity mining for DJ and Oracle 5 and NF2P LPs? I think at this point, this is probably a good opportunity for us to just simply reassess everything. This is not any meaningful standard, but I don't know if we perhaps want to consider terminating the DLM program entirely at this point and just seeing what things, where things stand from here. I don't know, and the DAO may vehemently disagree with me on that point.
I think the liquidity mining program is something that really encourages the liquidity for the assets we have.
Yep.
And makes it so that users are actually able to easily use the platform. They don't have to mint and burn tokens manually. So I don't think we should affect that. And any changes to it will be a bit of a technical hassle at the moment. So I think really it's an opportunity for anyone who wants to stake those assets to just get
The rates on those are now significantly higher, because all of the allocation points for the affected assets have been removed. Make of that what you will. Okay. Any other hands up? Failing that, any other questions? I don't really know how long to leave it before
there's one.
Right, inviting. Hi, Stanislav.
Hello, I'm good. How are you doing?
Good, thanks.
So my question is a bit more general, and it's about the project direction. And basically, my question is, does this attack meaningfully alter the project roadmap and the plans we have for, say, the next 365 days?
No.
No, not at all.
All right.
No, it
Awesome.
doesn't affect it at all. We're still going to be working on the protocol upgrade, the migration to Balancer v2, the introduction of the better Oracle that'll allow us to support more assets, the integration of NERN into it. This is going to take a while, and that's been the plan since we started working on this, was that we really wanted to do a much more thorough job of getting all of this audited before we release anything. NERN is out right now, but it's very much in a beta launch. So as we get more audits, that'll be pushed out more. And then the migration to Balancer v2 will introduce interest-bearing indices.
Yeah. Okay, Stanislav, I'm going to put you back into the audience. Thank you for your comment, though. It was good to give us a chance to say that. Right. Some things from Kuza. Reassessing Olympus Pro as well. I've been speaking to some of the chaps at Olympus, and I think this ultimately again comes down to the DAO. I don't think we should necessarily be moving forward with Olympus Pro right now, but that is ultimately not up to me. Do we plan to introduce a replacement index to fill the space of T55 and CC10? The answer is yes. At least, from a personal point of view, that is a sector that we still need to be filling. The form in which it will take, its name, whether it is relaunched with indexed v1 that's been repaired from this exploit, or waits until index v2, again, to be determined. Big Puppy, I want audits before moving funds back in personally. I think the one thing that's probably worth doing, given the timeline that's going to take for us to finish the Balancer v2 upgrade for indexed v2, is to throw indexed core up onto Code Arena and Immunify. And I think, given what has happened, the DAO, I hope, would have no problems with at least nominally putting forward a bounty of 100, 150k for doing this. In terms, so formal audits like C4, yes. So C4 does move quickly once you make the request, and they are also more cost effective to the DAO, in the sense that in Code Arena, I believe you pay a little bit, but then you only actually pay out if there are actionable things, as opposed to if we were to go with other kind of more widely known kind of check marks, such as QuantStamp. You pay the money regardless. I think as a relatively small DAO with a relatively limited treasury, it would make, and also with C4, we can actually pay in the governance token.
And we will have to schedule it at like 3 months out.
Scott Lewis tweeted that you can get results within a couple of weeks of having a request, but I don't know. But absolutely. In terms of whether new indices are launched after the repair to remove the exploit vector, and then get indexed core audited by C4, or just wait on firing off any new indices until that is done, or waiting until balance of V2. I don't know. And again, that has to be a community call. Not a community call, we're in one. The call of the community.
Yeah. Personally, I think that relaunching the indices with V1, maybe not the same indices, maybe even just one, because people had already been commenting that they were pretty similar. Either way, I think that it would make sense, especially given that the timeline for V2 is going to be, a while. We're still in the fairly early stages of that migration, and there's a lot of work to be done even outside of getting things audited. So, since that is a sector that so many people are interested in investing in, I do think it would be worth redeploying.
I want to point out here that there is no one questioning an audit rather than a demand. Again, this was always part of our plan. The question here becomes whether an index is launched before or after an immediate audit.
Right, that would make sense. To just wait. Yeah.
Yeah. I was getting. All right, that's not appreciated. What about the safety of other index tokens like DGen? Do you want to talk about this?
Yes, so the exploit that exists is only something that can occur under very specific circumstances that the other indices are not subject to. And even with the timing, they wouldn't be, because they don't have enough assets in their alternates list, the category of tokens that are eligible. With that said, I've been working on code to propose to the DAO as a proxy upgrade that will just completely remove this class of exploit, as well as a couple of minor improvements to things that were not exploited but just kind of broke during the attack. So, like, one example of that is with sushi, the weight of it relative to the total that's like supposed to be in place for the weight of all the assets was like 5,000% or something. So that was a pretty important thing that broke that'll also be fixed as part of it. But I should have the code ready for that pretty soon. I'm trying to be really thorough with it, and there's been a number of people who have offered to look at it before I submit it for proposals. So I'll share the details of that when the code's complete.
Okay. Anyone else want up? No? Okay. Any other comments coming in the Dylan? I'm sure he appreciates that. Thank you. Yeah, I think on a personal note, I would like to thank everyone. There have been, on our parts, both of us, a fair few kind of missteps in tone and communication. Ultimately, we are at peace with the way that we treated this. I think I have some regrets about some tweets that I sent in the firestorm, but I'm a fairly volatile person. So you throw me into a foxhole, this is what's going to happen. It's been genuinely heartwarming, all the support that we've received. We can deal with the trolls, and we can deal with the coders law people, and people that say that what has happened is based. And I think I've made my thoughts on those people quite clear. But it has truly meant the world to both of us, how the vast majority of the community has said that. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you all.
Yeah, just want to echo that. We've gotten so much support, and just really love this community.
What are the options for FFF moving forward? Sorry. Okay. I don't actually. So I don't. Okay, Dylan, can you talk about this?
So we should address this with all of them, actually, and thanks for bringing that up. So with FFF and D55 and CC10, they're all essentially broken, and I don't believe they can really be repaired. Now, FFF was not hit quite as hard as the other two, in the sense that we could potentially fix it, but it would be a massive hurdle because it has these two assets in it that have a very substantial weight that can't really just be removed. I mean, it would require a whole proxy upgrade and a very specific migration plan that would then affect the other indices. And I don't think that is worth our time, or that it even makes sense, because we don't have two other assets to put in there. The people who invested in FFF didn't decide to also hold DGen and FTP as an example, so I don't think we should try to swap them out. So I believe what makes the most sense, and what I'll be proposing to the DAO, is that we do a proxy upgrade that specifically on the affected indices, those three, allows us to transfer all of the remaining assets to the Treasury and to effectively do an attack on the LP, on the pairs that exist for them on the market. So it would be on Polygon, on Arbitrum, and on mainnet. All the Uniswap, SushiSwap balancer pools that have these as assets, we would attack them because they're already essentially broken, and then use those funds to go back towards the repayment of people that are holding LP shares. Now, I use the word attack because that really is what it is, but it wouldn't be anything malicious, and it would really be for the benefit of the people who are still holding those assets. Because if you currently have ETH and 5, for example, sitting in a Uniswap pair, you're really just draining money. And so if you're not aware of this attack, or you it's not worth the gas for you to burn the shares, or whatever the case may be, you still have them, you really are just leaking value right now, and there's nothing to be gained for you. So I think it just makes the most sense to take everything out with a proxy upgrade. So that will be part of the proxy upgrade that actually implements the fix, because it'll have to be changed to contracts. But we can do a snapshot prior to the on-chain proposal for the proxy upgrade to determine whether or not that's included. And then in addition to that, my suggestion would be that the Sigma committee be given permission to execute a function that calls self-destruct on those three tokens. So essentially, we've been saying, the Sigma committee has the authority to determine when all of the assets have been, adequately removed, and then once they are, just wipe them. That wouldn't mean that they have the authority to take the assets. It would essentially be a public function where you just tell it, like, hey, the pool has this token, and then it will transfer all of the balance in that token to the Treasury, and anybody would be able to call that. And then, once everything's been wiped, then we just destroy them entirely.
I should point out at this stage that for certain actions of this, the responsibility for doing that is down to the Sigma committee. We have asked them if they are comfortable performing this role, and because again, if we look at it through a coder's law view, this is an attack. Those on the Sigma committee have said that they are comfortable in this role. We would have given anyone the opportunity to back out and be replaced by someone else, had there been strong objections against. Okay, someone else typing, green and all. So let's just see in the interim. Oh, here we go. Still holding D55 from BAL because it wasn't worth gas to bridge it to mainnet and sell. Would that value still be counted against my compensation if you were planning to go ahead with the proxy upgrade you just described?
No. So at least under our suggestion, you would only have value removed from what you're going to be compensated for if you actually burned the asset yourself or sold it. So us as a DAO doing the attack on the LP shares, that of course wouldn't count. And I should say this is just my suggestion and what it seems like a bunch of other people are suggesting. That it seems is the consensus. But if we're going to take that as the assumed solution here, then the answer would be no. If you mean counted against as in like reduced from, then it would be no. If you mean counted against as like added to, then yes.
Okay. I think we're starting to peter out. So I think next steps are, again, there is a mega thread. It has got just like kind of a bunkum OP in it right now. Do not let that dissuade you from posting on it. I will update it shortly, kind of soon, to kind of reflect that we've had a talk, that there are some options available. Core, well, by which I mean really the two of us, will talk about some stuff a bit more, dig some details out relating to the Cornichon and the Rari plan. Again, I'll reach out to the chaps involved in both of those just to see if they've got kind of any good explain like vibes. So I don't have to reinvent the wheel. Put those forward. But yeah, I think it's also worth saying that, because this is a DAO decision, the fact that we're talking about this is an excellent first step, but we also, in terms of actually kind of putting this mechanism into place, it's going to take a little bit. I suspect I'll get quite a few people still a bit impatient within the last few minutes. We've just had someone else in general chat asking if CC10 will go back up to $1. I don't think that's going to stop anytime soon, because people. Okay. So yeah, forum is open for things. I think we should probably leave this here now. And yeah, thank you for attending. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your suggestions. Please, again, for the third time in the last minute, pop stuff into the forums, and we will come together and we will work something out.
Oh wait, we had one more request. There we go. Invited you. Hello.
Andrea?
Muted. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone. Good night.